Hi everybody, so welcome to the latest instalment of At Home with Ross. So today we've got Mark Whylie from Copperleaf Group with us. Mark is a builder slash developer that I've worked sort of on and off with now for a few years. So thanks very much for coming along today, Mark.
No problem. Good to be here. Nice to be at home with Ross. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, I'm hoping when all this is over, I get a real invite. That's very kind of you.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, no, over to you, Mark. Can you just introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, no trouble. So as Ross kindly said, I'm Mark Whylie from Copperleaf. We're a contractor developer based over in Macclesfield. We've been going for around about 17 years now, the last count. And typically we do projects from 1 unit to 50 units. But specifically today, I'd like to talk about the smaller works we do. So we've done a number of those over the years, Ross, as you know, and yeah, we've picked up some tips and should we call it best practice from both our point of view and from a client's point of view that I'd possibly like to share with you today, if that's okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Um, so with regards to like the business and the pandemic that we're going through at the moment, so how's that impacted your line of work?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of I suppose from a duration point of view, we you kind of see on the news most evenings that the construction industry has had kind of this dispensation where key projects have been allowed to continue, and you know it's often in the headlines about lots of tube passengers in London or crowding and what have you. Um, we decided fairly early on in the lockdown, in fact, almost immediately, that it was probably in our clients' best interest to close the sites,
Right.
and then secondary in our interest in a way as well to protect, you know, the workers that are going out there, and hopefully we do our part to stop the spread of the pandemic, as they say.
Yeah, because there was a really like quite varied range of responses to that, wasn't there, when the lockdown started? Because I know a few people working in the building trade and everything else, and I suppose obviously you've all got your different segments to it and different projects you're working on. So I suppose it's taking the right response for the right project, I suppose. But I don't know.
Yeah.
A few builders had a bit of a negative backlash on that, didn't they? For their lack of response. But was it a lack of response, or is actually there a responsibility to the client?
I think every case is individual, to be fair. I think that you're quite right that some clients, and you do hear anecdotal stories, some clients really wanted their projects pushing on and were kind of, you know, saying some contractors are contractually obliged to be on site and to continue working. What I will say is that we found all our clients to be completely understanding. I'm not just saying that. It's been a case of we've communicated with them, and equally they've understood the need to kind of do your part. I think in a way, I think certainly this pandemic's brought out the best in people in lots of ways. Perhaps not at the start when you know there was a big rush on toilet roll and various things, but you
Yeah,
know that thankfully that's calmed down now.
that certainly
But
didn't bring out
yeah,
the best in people, did it?
it didn't. But then I think everybody's taken a pragmatic approach, and people have been sensible since. And what we've found is our clients, yeah, they want us to be here when it all when you know when we get through this, and obviously we can get back to some form of normality.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on it there, though. But what's the actual impact? So you must have had current projects and things you're working on, but so what's the actual impact, and what will be that? What's the sort of plan on those current projects that you've got we working on?
Yeah, where we have closed sites, obviously we've made them safe, and we continue to communicate with regards to how and when we're able to get back and be effectively working on them. So from our business point of view, that clearly affects cash flow, and we've managed, we've put in management for that, and accounted for that. But equally, it's as I say, the key to, I think, all this is to make sure that your communication channels are there so that your clients know what's happening. You've kind of got this strange, everybody's in the same boat. So it's a strange situation at the moment whereby people have got lots of time to think about things. And if that vacuum of information persists, then sometimes the conclusions can be drawn from it. And I think if you fill that vacuum with information as to what you're doing and how you can be proactive, which is what we've done, we're looking forward to the continuance of work as and when we get back.
Yeah.
But from a business point of view, we continue to work within the contractual frameworks that we've set up, which is possibly one of the things that without stealing my thunder there, Ross, one of the things that we recommend a client always does.
Yeah. We've, as you know, we've spoke to a range of different businesses from different industries, and I think a key element of this process has been communication, hasn't it? So you touched on it there, and I suppose the majority of interviews we've done on this is every business. It's just highlighted how key the communication strategy's been. So it's good to hear that you're taking that from that. But okay, so so you mentioned you want to talk about sort of like your smaller projects you do, which is great, because I suppose that would apply to, I would suggest, the majority of my client base, whereby, okay, I've talked about self-build mortgages in the past and things, and some of my clients will look at that as a potential in the future. But if we talk about that as maybe more of a larger project, and we can mention that somewhere else, but maybe more of a smaller development that maybe people are considering, would that be like an extension, maybe?
Extension or renovation, possibly a new build. There's a lot of people at the moment who I suspect would be considering perhaps those smaller projects to undertake those. I know, I'm not immune to that either, because I've been sat at home thinking those jobs must get done as well. So it ranges from everything from, maybe the small extension through to the larger stuff. But if we put it under the home renovation banner, I think there's a few things people can do.
If we look at that on the big picture, that to you and I, we're talking about it as a smaller project, but actually to somebody, to the consumer, to the customer on the front end there, that's a massive project. Like, to put an extension on somebody's house, that's a massive undertaking for that individual in nine times out of 10 cases. So if I'm sat at home then today and thinking, right, you know what, I'm going to extend, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to take on this project, what advice would you generally give to that person then?
Well, I suppose if you're considering doing something, then there's some great resources out there. So on the government planning portal, there's various guides as to what you can do with and without planning permission. And I suppose that really is the starting point as to what your ambition would be, because they've recently relaxed some of the planning laws so that you can actually carry out projects. You still need to notify the local authority, and you still need to ensure that you've got building regulations on that. But certainly there are projects that you can start to think about without the need for planning. But if we take a typical project, one of the things I would say is that, again, communication from a client's point of view, to understand precisely the type of project you're looking at, is key, really, to get a designer on board earlier rather than later, because they'll be able to scope out and interpret what you're looking for. And don't be afraid to go back and say, this isn't quite what I was looking for. Sometimes we have clients who come to us and say, well, this isn't quite what I was looking for, but could you make some suggestions? And it often seems that there's a reluctance to say, well, whilst it's a great design, it's not quite what we're looking for. So I would always be quite sure as to what you want, and make sure that gets put into a scheme.